My name is Uli Becker. I work with Rockwell Automation in Milwaukee, like Jeff already indicated. I've been with the organization for about 2 years. And if you detect a slight accent, I'm originally from Germany. I've spent about 20 years in purchasing, most of the time in the US, but also in Germany and in France for a couple of years. The interesting part about Rockwell is it actually has had a strategic sourcing organization for quite some time already. Okay, there we go. What I want to talk about, just a couple of highlights. What do we do? Most people are not familiar with Rockwell Automation as a company. How did the sourcing organization develop? And where do we see it going in the future? Like I said, I've been there for 2 years. It's already been a mature organization, and my role in the strategic sourcing organization is really to develop the tools and methods that we use, software, also just business processes in general to become more efficient. What I kind of realized listening to a lot of the speakers here in New Orleans is that many of you think about how do we get sourcing really established as a recognized function in an organization. How do we get people to use sourcing and give up their resistance? My problem is a little different, or maybe we should call it problem, but challenge. Our sourcing organization is already so established and has done their stuff for so long, they've become part of the problem. Now they say, well, we know what we're doing, go away. We don't want any new processes. We already have everything we need. So I'm actually working within the sourcing organization to improve what they do, how they source parts basically, and how they manage contracts primarily to take them to the next level. Rockwell Automation is a very old company, almost 110 years. Originally started under the name Allen Bradley in Milwaukee. We make industrial automation, basically, in a nutshell. It's the largest company in the world that specializes in this field. There are some competitors that you all know that do some industrial automation, but nobody really fully focuses on it like Rockwell does, and that has led to kind of a unique business model. We focus very heavily on customized solutions and less selling over-the-shelf products, which poses its own issues, in fact, for sourcing, because unless the field engineers go out and spec out a solution for a customer, we don't really know what we're going to be selling and what we're going to be buying. So our forecasting is notoriously terrible, and we've kind of given up on improving this and said, well, we'll kind of get to a certain level, but we need to focus on getting our supply base optimized so they can just live with that. And it's been working quite well. Our performance numbers are good, and we've weathered the economy fairly well. What we do is aimed at increasing productivity of industries, manufacturing process, and bulk. It helps companies use less raw materials, less energy, and become quicker in switching over their production lines. And it also, just by the nature of reducing resource input, also boosts environmental sustainability, which has become more of an issue in recent years, of course. But if you optimize the production processes and use less energy, you automatically have less of a carbon footprint. Whether you're trying for that or not, it's just a benefit you get with that. We also have the necessary safety equipment for a production line, like light curtains and things like that, so nobody reaches into a machine and gets hurt. Just a few numbers here. We're about a $6 billion company. It's FY11. We just finished FY12, and I don't really have the latest numbers. We have about 20-ish thousand people based in Milwaukee. We serve over 80 countries. We have a decent amount of sales in emerging markets. Even the emerging markets now are looking into moving away from more labor-intensive work to more automation to boost quality and productivity. Even if you source stuff in China today, it's become kind of expensive. So the Chinese companies more and more move towards automated production as well, which benefits us. We're pretty spread out through the world. We have like 10,000 people in North America. When I say plants here, what's really more, this is locations. On most slides I call it plants. A lot of the locations are really customization centers. They don't manufacture product. They order product from our few product plants and customize it and put it in big motor control centers and panel switches and things like that. We're pretty evenly spread out throughout the world. So how did sourcing at Rockwell get to be where we are today? And like I said, it's about a 10, 12 year story. We started like most companies that get pieced together over the years with decentralized function. Each plant had their own buyers, and of course, you all know everybody in the company is a better buyer than the actual buyers. So that was just the culture, like many places. And in 2000, the upper management made a strategic, as we call it, decision to basically look at the processes, not just sourcing, but shared processes basically across the organizations, and put in a program they called Functional Excellence to start consolidating it. Sourcing was one of them. Started with a project with one of the major consulting companies to identify, okay, how can we do this? What kind of organization do we need? And that was put in place, and it's pretty much stayed the same since then, the methodology. In 2005, another phase was started. We call it Global Process Transformation, or GPT for short, to stay with the three-letter acronyms. It's kind of true, isn't it? It's just a cover name for an SAP deployment. So we rolled out, or started rolling out in phases, single instance global SAP deployment, going along with some process changes to fit together. We're probably, this is 2009, well, that was probably more the North American part. We're done in North America, and we're worldwide, we're probably at the 80% level. There's not very much left, so it's now more the obscure locations where more customer-centric manufacturing is pretty much taken care of. So whatever sourcing is concerned about, we're pretty much there. And since 2010, we've shifted from more of the execution side to the strategic side, and take the focus away from how do we process purchase orders more quickly to how do we include sourcing into the overall flow of the business. So when we started, I'm going to try to come up with one way to visualize it here. Basically on the level, the three levels, organization, system, and process. When we started out, everybody did their own thing. We had 20 plus different systems that didn't talk to each other, and everybody had their own business process. At that time, so this is around 2000, we were only a $300 million spent organization with, in the beginning, 5 strategic sourcing employees tasked to get the house in order. We didn't really do any new product development and all the ups and downs that come with it. No centralization, no visibility because of all the different systems, no leverage with the suppliers. The suppliers were all happy about that. Very unorganized processes and redundancies, in other words, in everything we did. Once we did the second phase here, at least we got the processes lined up. They weren't all the same yet, but policies were put in place to say, hey, we understand you have your own system, you're going to be responsible for what you do, but here's the guideline how you do it. So there were like high-level policies, how you do a sourcing event, how often you do it, what's the approval chain. So the free for all was kind of over, and the central organization started to grow and absorbing responsibility to actually take away the authority from some of the factories that have been sourcing themselves until that point. And you can see, I probably can't read it, the spend already was like approaching $500 million, and we had about 25 people, give or take, over the time frame. So all the things on the previous slide started to go away, and we were able to demonstrate savings opportunities coming along with this central organization. Then with the SAP deployment, now SAP became the increasingly important system, made our reporting a lot easier because now we could go and pull the bulk of the numbers from there. We still had to deal with the other systems where things are still happening in, and to this day there's still a few left. That's a project for the future to clean that all up. We also switched as an organization to a called end-to-end process model. So we divvied all the business processes up, and the one that included sourcing was called purchase to pay, or P2P for short. We now hit or crossed the $1 billion threshold and had 150 people. The reason why that number is so high all of a sudden at that time with SAP, if you're familiar with SAP, material management and purchasing is really pretty much joined at the hip in SAP. We took that opportunity to bring all the buyers out in the organization into the central sourcing group. They have their own director who reports to the VP of sourcing. So they're not aligned with the sourcing managers directly, but organizationally we aligned them. So every sourcing manager has their group of buyers basically they work with, and they're all co-located for the most part, so the communication was a lot better, and then the tasks were divvied up. So the sourcing manager did the front end high level work, create the contract, hand the contract off to the buyer basically, and then typed it all in SAP, set all the master data up in the system. So the plants who retained the day-to-day order placement responsibility, so the date management we call it, would be able to start issuing purchase orders against that. The nice thing was putting this in one organization that took away a lot of the friction points between the strategic and the tactical side. I mean, there's always some competing interests to this day, but reporting into the same organization eliminated a lot of the more nasty discussions that happened before. So I like to say, since I came on board in 2010, things have changed dramatically. At this point, we had reached a level. I said, okay, we're fairly mature. We have processes in place. It's not perfect, but things are repetitive. Everybody knows their place. Our volume now is closing on 2 billion, and we had 200 people. One of the first things I did is I looked at, when I started this, my job title was supply chain simplification. So I figured that doesn't really represent at all what we need to be doing here. So I changed the purchase to pay into source to pay, and that's, everybody now calls me the S2P guy. Oh, yeah, that's kind of an unintended consequence, but that's what it is. At this point also we started looking at, okay, where do we have good tools in place? We have a very high degree of electronic ordering. We use SAP SNC for smaller suppliers. It's like the SAP web portal. We use EDI. Between the two of those tools, we have about 80% of our orders go out electronically at this point. And we use ASNs and confirmations and e-invoicing, so that was all covered. But when you looked over the fence into the sourcing area, and I learned a new term today, I'm very proud to, or yesterday, I'm proud to repeat, the sourcing people use the BAS system. Yeah, everybody remembers what that means? The big A, dollar spreadsheet system. And we started to hit the limits of that capability because we do a lot of electronics. We have distributors that have thousands of parts, and we needed to be able to do sourcing events with thousands of parts. And we were able to do this on spreadsheets with a massive amount of human and time effort, and come to a conclusion. But you had to really limit the scope of these activities in terms of how many suppliers could participate, because it just takes an incredible amount of time. And we started looking out at the tools in the marketplace that would help us do that. And that's when we found Zycus, not in the first step. I think we went through like 25 different providers. There's no shortage of people out there who claim to have a solution. And some of them are good and some of them are not as good. But we found for our specific needs, Zycus was definitely the closest match. So we subscribed to the iSource, iOptimize, and iContract solution, and are in the process of finalizing the deployment here. So we've done a couple of events, and just listening in to the previous speaker, and you're talking about contract management and the issues involved with that. So we're going through this right now. But it's been, the adoption is pretty good. There's really nobody who said, no, we don't want to do that. Of course, the proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, we got to make sure we measure how well this is going, and we're deploying this right now. There's a lot of benefits from this. Of course, error reduction, standardization, documentation. If you have your contracts in a contract management system, you know where they are. They're not in a file cabinet number 17 on the 3rd floor. And if you know our building, which is a, I don't know, 100-year-old factory, inner city factory building with many floors, you can get lost in there and never find your way out. And that's where our contracts are, so nobody really wants to go and find them anymore. It's pretty funny. All the production has been moved out, so there's like empty floors for, I think we have like millions of square feet in there. It's pretty interesting. But that's where the stuff gets put in some corner. Nobody ever finds it again, unfortunately. And we're looking to iContract to help us put an end to this. So just to summarize this in a few words, we've moved from a completely decentralized organization into a very central organization. Our VP of strategic sourcing has like global responsibility. There's only a very few exotic side businesses that have so far evaded that. We do like repair work for pretty much anything. I think we can repair your toaster if you want to. So we didn't get involved in buying toaster spare parts yet. But other than that, anything that has any kind of significant volume is managed through the central organization. We have a lot of standardization, and we continue to push that. We leverage SAP for that, for the day-to-day stuff, and we're using now, right now, rewriting actually the sourcing procedures, since I'm responsible for business processes as well, to not say, well, when you're sourcing something, you have to do this. Now it says, if you're sourcing something, you have to go on www.zycus.com and do this, which is necessary to drive the compliance internally, of course. And I also have the luck to manage to be responsible for the master data, so I'm able to align this and instill the necessary discipline that lines up with all the data we have in the system. The reports you can get out of your system only as good as the data you put in there. So basically, my contribution so far has been to go from the old process flow, purchase to pay, basically look at all the elements that were in the process and reshuffle them and tack the sourcing on. And I mean, like I said, I've been in that business for quite some time. There has never been a better time really to do this. There's tools now available, and through the famous cloud, it's become so much more accessible and also affordable to do this. It doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel if there's a good solution available in the market that's easy to implement, easier to implement externally than internally. That's definitely an option. And well, right now with this new process flow, the one part that we're not really great at is the spend analysis part, which is the front end. We have an old homegrown system from the beginning of time when we started strategic sourcing, and we made it ourselves, so it does exactly what people 12 years ago thought was necessary, but it's not 12 years ago anymore, so we need to move on. And SAP so far has been less than successful coming up with a good reporting dashboard solution. So there's still some work to do here. I think Zycus is luckily covering most of these steps now, so offering a nice opportunity to get a solution in there for you. The way we look at sourcing, and it kind of aligns with some of the things I've seen this morning. How do you depict the whole process? We did it this way, from source to pay, and there's different names for the various steps. We're pretty automated, like I said, on the right side, supply management, procurement, whatever you want to call it, the tactical operational part. Things flow, POs go out, confirmations come in. We don't really have to look at this anymore. We look at the contract like as a handover between the sourcing and the buyer side. In the past, it was literally a spreadsheet that got emailed, and in the future, it's going to be flowing right from iSource into SAP. And we've covered the two boxes, or whatever you want to call them, chevrons up there. And hopefully soon, I'm going to have the left circle complete as well. And that should leave us with a nice, coherent, and closed loop system to go through the sourcing and procurement cycle on an ongoing basis. Thanks for your interest.